The NFC North is one of the most historic divisions in the league. However, there seems to be a new era of NFC North football. The Vikings just won the division last year. The Lions are actually good. The Bears may have found a franchise quarterback, and the Packers start a new era of Jordan Love football. Hey, it's Cole, and today I preview every single team in the NFC North, and at the end of the video, I will predict the records and standing of the NFC North. Like I said, we'll be predicting the record standing, previewing every single team in the NFC North in this video, and I will do this for every single division, every single team. So go ahead, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss when I do your division and your NFL team. So let's go ahead and get right into it with the first team, the Chicago Bears. Okay, before we go into the team preview, let's take a look at last year's offensive stats for the Chicago Bears. 29th in yards per game. They're 32nd dead last in passing yards per game. Rushing yards per game, they were first. And points per game, they were 23rd. So they didn't really have a good offense last year. I think lots of us know that. But on the ground, they had a heck of an offense, mainly due to Justin Fields running for 100 yards almost every single game. He had over 1,000 yards last year. So I think this should definitely improve. And let's talk about, the team, the offense, and why I think that will improve. You talk about the depth chart. Obviously, they got Justin Fields. This is a make-or-break season for him, and I'm excited. I am a Justin Fields truther. I think he can be the franchise quarterback of the Chicago Bears, so I'm very excited for him. Obviously, on the ground, we know what he can do. He can change the game whenever, he's running and scoring touchdowns from 75 yards out, but obviously the biggest thing he needs to get under control is his passing ability. I think he was overthinking a lot of things, a lot of passes, and he just didn't look like himself from Ohio State. And I think he can be a better passer because of what we did see at Ohio State. And this was, I believe, this is like his first year starting. So, in theory, he was a rookie, if we're being completely honest. But I think he can go back to his ways of just mainly being a pocket passer. Not saying he's not good. He's just going to get rid of his running ability because obviously we know how dynamic and game-changing that can be. But again, I just think he'll do a lot better as a passer. Year 2 under Eberflus, which this might be the right stat, might be a wrong stat, but he's never been in the same offense for more than a year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be terribly wrong on that, but he's gotten a year or two under his belt with this playbook, with the offense, with some of the players now, and it should be exciting. And again, obviously, the Bears have done so much to just put him around the great talent and put him around a great offense, starting with the running backs. They got Khalil Herbert, no more David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert will be the starter, but I don't think he'll be just like the main starter. He won't get the 3 down. He's not a 3-down back. He's a guy that definitely will take early handoffs. He'll take, obviously, receptions from the backfield. Maybe he'll line up in the slot here and there. But again, he's going to be more of the receiving back on the team, but he'll definitely have a big impact on the ground. But I think Roschon Johnson, the rookie out of Texas, he'll be more of the guy who's going to get the most carries. And I think it's going to be, a mix of Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, and a little bit of Deontay Foreman. But I'm very excited for Roschon Johnson, backup in Texas, and to Bijan Robinson. In most Power 5 schools, he probably wouldn't be the backup, and he was starting. And he was still playing absolutely great when he was the backup of Bijan Robinson, and now he's going to have more, I think, more of a role in more touches in Chicago. I'm very excited for Roschon Johnson. So let's go ahead and take a look at the weapons that the Chicago Bears have put around Justin Fields. With DJ Moore, obviously, they traded him to the Chicago Bears, or the Panthers traded him to Chicago Bears for that number 1 overall pick, and Justin Fields as wide receiver 1. Now, some people compare DJ Moore, the acquiry of DJ Moore, to the A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts thing and the Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen thing, even though I would disagree with that, even though, he's getting his wide receiver 1, but at that point, A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs, when they got traded, they were already top 10 wide receivers. If not, they were like top 15 wide receivers in the NFL already. So it's hard to say that when I think DJ Moore isn't really that close to being a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. Not saying he's bad. I think I still have him as a top 20 wide receiver, but I don't think he'll come in and automatically change the game for Justin Fields. But I am excited for everybody after DJ Moore. Darnell Mooney, he's going to be finally put in a role where I think he fits better, the wide receiver 2 role. In my opinion, he's not a wide receiver 1. And even though he played great as a wide receiver 1, but now you got somebody who's going to take some with some eyes away, I guess, if that makes sense. Obviously, he'll usually get the second best cornerback. He's not always going to get the best cornerback on the team, on the other team. So I'm very excited for Darnell Mooney and then Chase Claypool, who I think can be a good wide receiver 3. I still think that second round pick was a little bit too high for them. Luckily, they got a lot more picks back in that trade for the wide receiver 1 role, or the first overall pick. But I still think Chase Claypool's a good receiver, and I think he'll, a full offseason with the new offense, I think he'll be just fine. Second round pick, a little bit too rich, but I don't think the Bears are gonna regret that later on, 2 years down the road. To be honest, I don't really think that's gonna, nobody's gonna care about that anymore. And then they got Equanimeous St. Brown, who I think is a good receiver. They drafted Tyler Scott, who I can't wait to see in the slot, because if he can go ahead and run slants and get past guys, he gets an open field, man, he can be gone for a 50-yard touchdown. He is fast. He is speedy. He's not going to beat you on a go route, but he will beat you if he has the ball in open field. And that is true. And then they got Velus Jones Jr. Now you look at the tight ends. They got Cole Kmet, who, again, I'm very excited for. I hope they use their tight ends a lot more, because I think Cole Kmet can be an absolute great of a tight end. I think he can be a top 10 tight end in the league. And I'm very excited for them to hopefully use him a lot more. They got Robert Tonyan, which I think was a good signing, and then they got Jake Tongues. Now let's go to another point, another part of the team where they've really been able to help out Justin Fields, and that is the offensive line, where this is a projected offensive line for the Chicago Bears from our lads. So Braxton Jones on the left side, left tackle. Tevin Jenkins hopefully finding his forever home at the left guard spot. They got veteran Cody Whitehair. They got right guard Nate Davis and right tackle Darnell Wright. I like this offensive line. I don't think it's the best, but I still think it's pretty good. I think it's better than last year's 100%. I'm not too sure on the left side. I don't know if Braxton Jones is going to be the future left tackle. I hope Tevin Jenkins is the future left guard, because I think he can be a good offensive lineman in the league. They got Cody Whitehair, who is not himself from 4 or 5 years ago, to be honest, but he is still a veteran center, which I think can help out Justin Fields a lot. I think a veteran center can call out protections, can spot out some defensive things, defensive lineups with the defensive linemen and stuff like that. And then I love the right side. I think this is the best side on the offensive line. You got Nate Davis, who they brought in from Tennessee, who I really wanted for my favorite team. He's a great guard, and I think he'll be great on that right side. And then you drafted Darnell Wright, who I think is a great right tackle. A little too early for me. I would have taken a few other tackles before him, but I'm not going to nitpick on that right now. I think definitely going to be able to help out Justin Fields, and I am excited. Okay, I'm very excited for the Chicago Bears projected offensive line. And so let's go ahead and talk about the Chicago Bears defense. Let's take a look at the defensive stats for 2022. From 2022, they were 29th in yards per game allowed. They were 17th in passing yards per game allowed. They were 30th in allowed rushing yards per game and 32nd in allowed points per game. They didn't have a good defense. And I'll be honest right now, I don't know how better it got, especially, just this year. One, they definitely made some great moves that I like, and I'm excited to see how it plans out. But there's definitely some holes and some problems and questions I have about this defense that could spiral down this team, at least defensively. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the secondary. And I think these... Let's take a look at the secondary, because I think the secondary starters are good. I love Jalen Johnson. I love Kyler Gordon. You look at the safeties, Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker. I love those guys. Tyreek Stevenson and Terrell Smith, the rookies, great players. But they're all starters. Maybe not Terrell Smith, but he'll definitely see some times. But all these guys are starters. After the starters, I don't know how confident I am in their secondary. So that's why I'm lower on this. This is definitely a part where I'm lower on the defense. An injury or two happens, things can spiral out of control in the secondary, especially when your defensive line isn't that good either. It's not. They complement each other, but if these guys get injured, obviously I hope not. I hope nobody gets injured, but you lose a guy for a week or two, maybe someone's out for 5 weeks. Someone got to go in IR. This is not going to look good in my opinion for the Chicago Bears. Now, in the long run, it may not matter, but this year where they can make the playoffs, they even can win the division, I don't think it's going to be the best. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the front seven. You're talking about the linebackers and defensive line. they made a lot of moves on the linebacker position, getting Tremaine Edmonds, getting TJ Edwards, which, I mean, I like both of them. I think the TJ Edwards signing was the better one. In my opinion, I would have signed TJ Edwards and just let Jack Sanborn be in this linebacker too, because he's an absolute beast of a linebacker as well. You know, I probably would have used Tremaine Edmonds' money somewhere else if I'm being completely honest, but I'm not nitpicking on that. But the linebacker core is special. It's a really good linebacking core, and I mean that's definitely a spot that they wanted to make sure was right. And I think if you and now in the times where kind of the linebacker position isn't as important as it used to be, you know, but if you do have a top end linebacker, it makes a difference. But if you got somebody, you know, that's not crazy good, it's not going to look too different from somebody who's, you know, better, you know, a few times. But if you got one of the best linebackers in the league, it's going to make, you know, it's going to show. You know, you look at the 49ers, Fred Warner, you have Demario Davis on the Saints. You have all these other linebackers. And Tremaine Edmonds is probably a top 10 linebacker in the league. So he's definitely going to be able to make a difference. I just think the money could have used spent elsewhere. But again, linebacker core, absolutely amazing. You brought in rookie Noah Sewell. Even though I'm not the highest on him, I thought, you know, maybe I should put him on the depth chart here. And then you talk about the defensive line, which I think is terrible. Now, I love the DeMarcus Walker signing. He's going to be a great edge rusher for the Bears because they need pass rush. They need run defense. They need better defensive line, to be honest. But I love DeMarcus Walker. And then on our lads, the projected starters were DeMarcus Walker, Andrew Billings, Justin Jones, and Travis Gibson. That's bad. That is bad. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say it, but that is a bad starting lineup for the defensive line. And you got rookie Zach Pickens, who I'm a fan of, and you got rookie Gavron Dexter, who could genuinely both find themselves starting by the end of the year. And I think these guys have a ton of potential. No, I'm not saying they're going to become top 20 guys, but they're going to be serviceable guys at the defensive spot. I think Gavron Dexter can be maybe a top 20 guy in the NFL. I'm very excited. A very athletic defensive tackle. But I'm not too high on the secondary, or I guess the defense for the Chicago Bears, and that's the thing that worries me a little bit. Definitely. So let's go ahead now and talk about the next team in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. So let's start with their 2022 offensive stats, their team stats. They're 17th in yards per game, 17th in passing yards per game, 15th in rushing yards per game, and 14th in points per game. So they were in the middle of the road all season when it comes to team stats. And it shows when you watch the team. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs. They had their terrible games. They had their really good games. And so it's going to be interesting now. You know, no more Aaron Rodgers. It's all Jordan Love now. And so let's kind of talk about this team and have the Packers done enough to possibly put around Jordan Love? And can Jordan Love be the next quarterback that, you know, for the Packers go for 10 plus years and possibly be a Hall of Famer? First of all, let me just get that. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he'll be another Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. I don't think it's going to go for another decade. But I'm a fan of Jordan Love. You know, he was drafted in the first round for a reason. I think he can be a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying he'll be a top 10 quarterback, but a guy who could lead this team for probably about, you know, he could lead him for like another contract. So he gets a 3-year deal after this or whatever. I think he can, and I think he can take this team to the playoffs if they just surround him with better talent, and hopefully this team just overall gets better. I don't think this team will win the division, you know, just a spoiler out there, but this team definitely has a projection, and I see it, but also at the same time, I don't. You know, you look at everything else around Jordan Love with Aaron Jones, who had last year 1,000 yards. He had 2 touchdowns only on the ground, but I know he had more in the air. One of the best running backs in the league. I think he's a top 10 running back. He's a great receiving back. He can definitely run a lot of routes for you. And I think this is the strongest part about their offense is their running back game, is their rushing, ability is obviously Aaron Jones, but also you have A.J. Dillon, who is a more of a ground and pound running back who can catch passes, but most part he's going to be getting the carries and short distance plays, 4th and 2, 3rd and 2, goal line. But definitely, if you need him to run for a drive, he can do that. He can go through a full drive almost and get down to the touchdown, to the end zone. So I'm really excited for this running back group. It should be good like they've been. And then you go to the receiving side of it. You know, the receivers, the tight ends. It's not good. It's not good. I like Christian Watson. I think he's a good wide receiver. Jaden Reed, a good wide receiver, but none of these guys I think are game changers, and that's what you need. You really do need a game changer. A guy who can be possibly a top 10, 15, 20 wide receiver in the league. And I think Christian Watson can be that. But after that, it's like, okay, Jaden Reed's nice. He's got some speed. He might beat you on a go route. But he's more of a wide receiver 3, in my opinion. You got Romeo Doubs, who is probably a wide receiver 4. Same thing with Samari Toure and Dontavian Wicks. And I hate it. I hate that the Packers keep doing this. They should just draft a wide receiver in the first round. I mean, imagine you could have got JSN, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, who would have immensely helped out your receiving core. And they just didn't do it. Now, they got Jaden Reed in the second round, maybe a little too early for me, but obviously they went ahead and they got the 2 other tight ends, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, which I think is fine. I mean, I like the strategy of going 2 tight ends. I mean, you saw it with the Ravens of Mark Andrews and, was it Hayden Hurst, I think? So, I respect it. They do use their tight ends, and we should definitely see both of these guys on the field ASAP. These guys are going to be starting from day one, and we'll see if that helps out Jordan Love, which it should. I think they're both 2 great tight ends from this draft class, and obviously in a strong draft class of tight ends. It makes sense to go for 2. It really does, and I understand that vision. But receiver-wise, I'm not there yet. I think this draft class, in my opinion, could have been a lot better. Say they went JSN or any of the wide receivers with their first pick, and then they got Hendon Hooker, not Hendon Hooker, but if they got Brian Branch in the second round, which they could have. They definitely could have got Brian Branch, but they didn't, unfortunately. And then you get the 2 tight ends. I think you're looking at a really good receiving core, but we'll see. I hope they do it next year because they got to do something more than just drafting receivers in the second round to help out Jordan Love. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jaden Reed turns into a top 10 running back or top 10 wide receiver, top 15 wide receiver, but I just don't know if he will. And I think they got to do more for Jordan Love's sake. I'm a fan of Christian Watson. He had a heck of a rookie season, but he had his downs. Obviously, like the first play of the year, or whatever it was, he dropped that pass. Then he had that really good game against the Dallas Cowboys. So he's shown that he can be a really good player, and I think he will. I don't think you got to have more than Christian Watson, and I'll say that. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see what the Packers have planned for that receiving core. And then you got the offensive line, which I'm a big fan of when healthy. You got David Bakhtiari, one of the best left tackles when healthy. Elton Jenkins had some injury issues. I like Josh Myers. I'm not too sure about this right side of John Runyon and Zach Tom. Zach Tom coming into his second year in the NFL. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But this isn't a bad offensive line. I think, I'd be pretty satisfied if I was putting my rookie quarterback in year 1 behind this offensive line. Obviously, he's not a rookie, but at this point, he's pretty much a rookie. He's pretty much a rookie. So, again, I'm excited for that. Again, if David Bakhtiari can stay healthy, that's really going to be good for his blind side. Really going to be good with David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins. I think Josh Myers is a fine center. But again, that right side is the problem. Not the problem, but just I have a few questions. But not saying they can be bad. Just, the left side's a lot better than the right side. I'll say that. I will say that. So I'm excited for this offensive line. Again, I'm excited for this offense. This can be a dynamic offense. It really all depends on Jordan Love. And I don't know if he'll be the franchise quarterback. I think he has potential to be the franchise quarterback. But it sucks for him because it's really a make or break year, possibly. Depending on where they draft, they could be finding their next quarterback. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get Caleb Williams or Drake May, but if they really like one of these other quarterbacks that could be at the 10th pick or 11th pick or whatever, maybe they go after him. But it's gonna be a tough year for Jordan Love, but I think he can handle it. Let's go to this defense of the Green Bay Packers. Looking at 2022. They were 17th in allowed yards per game, 6th in allowed passing yards per game, 25th in allowed rushing yards, and 17th in allowed points per game. This defense was not that good last year, and it definitely showed. You got some good players. And I think this defense got better, not extremely better. I don't think they'll be like 25th for rushing yards, but I think I could see them in the middle of the pack, again, with this defense. And, again, it's not the best. It's not the worst, if we're being completely honest. So, again, middle of the pack would make a ton of sense for this Packers defense. So, again, yeah, I'm excited for that, for them to possibly just improve. But you look at this secondary, which, again, I have questions, and they're kind of like the same thing for me with the Chicago Bears, is that they got great starters. amazing starters. Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I like Rasul Douglas. I like Eric Stokes. Darnell Savage is a great safety. Rudy Ford. But after that, who else do they have? If we're being completely honest. Wish they would have made more moves as some good depth pieces. I'm not, again, if one or two guys go injured, get down, what does that look like? Who's the next guy up and how well did they perform? And again, if they don't perform well, this could go badly. Everything could go on a spiral downhill. So, again, same thing with when it comes to the Bears with their secondary. I like the starters. I really do. But the depth pieces are not that good. And one thing I've always said is you can never have too many cornerbacks. You can never have too many safeties. If you got good safeties and you got good backups, I'm happy. That's definitely one of the positions where I want to make sure that we have really good cornerbacks anywhere. If somebody gets injured, someone else can come in and we wouldn't have to worry that much. I don't know if that's to say. I don't know if I can say that for the Green Bay Packers. You look at the front seven now. You got Preston Smith, you got Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, Kingsley Enagbari at linebackers, who I'm just like, they're good. I like Rashawn Gary. I like Preston Smith. They're two good guys, outside linebackers, who are going to come off the edge. Quay Walker in the middle of the field, it's not good. Not good. Especially with the first round pick, it was not good. You wasted Devontae Adams' pick, I think, on Quay Walker. It may have been Devontae White. I'm not too sure, but yeah, no. I don't know what it's to say, but Quay Walker did not have a good season last year. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the one that pushed that one medical person versus the Lions. It wasn't the last week of the season, but it was in the middle of the season. I'm pretty sure that was Quay Walker. But yeah, he has to chill out a little bit there. He can be a good linebacker. I think that was he might not be worth that first round pick. Then you look at the defensive line. They got Kenny Clark, who is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. Absolutely amazing. But interior-wise, when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, they got nobody else. The next best guy is probably Lucas Van Ness, but he's probably going to be coming off the edge. He's a tweener. I'm not really the biggest fan of the word tweener, but he's going to be a guy that can play on the outside, on the edge, come and attack the tackle. But you can also play him on the inside with his size and his power. And I think that can be a viable option when it comes to interior-wise. But after that, it's really nobody else interior-wise. But we'll see. Also drafted Carl Brooks, edge rusher. TJ Slayton was, I think, another projected interior offensive line to be starting. So not that good. And then he also drafted Devontae White, which in theory should be the other starter next to Kenny Clark. But it's not. He's not. And it's pretty disappointing that, again, he was also, I believe, the other first-round pick. You drafted the wrong Georgia players. And I find that funny, but not the dog on Quay Walker and Devontae White that much. This defensive line should be better coming off the edge. Obviously Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary should definitely help that. But again, like I said, I think they will be better in allowing less rushing yards per game. But I don't think it's still going to be. I don't think it's going to be that good. And I think the biggest piece of this is Lucas Van Ness. And I actually projected them to actually draft him in my mock draft. But again, a guy who can play on the inside, who can be definitely very effective inside. A guy who can play on the outside, definitely can be effective outside. And so he's going to go between those, few spots. But how, with Preston Smith or Rashawn Gary, what's the long-term future with some of them? Mainly Preston Smith. I know Rashawn Gary's still pretty young. He was drafted, 2019. So, he's young. I think he just signed a contract. I could be wrong, though. Preston Smith, he's getting up there in age. Will he be gone? And Lucas Van Ness becomes a primary outside guy. Again, a lot of questions. A decent front seven, a decent defense. I just don't know how good it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a top 10. And sometimes when you have a young quarterback, the defense kind of needs to be good. And it doesn't, I'm not saying it needs to be good. Obviously, if you're drafting, possibly your franchise quarterback, you might not have the best of defense. But obviously, they were in the playoffs, so they drafted him late. I'm rambling on at this point. I don't know how good this team's going to be. I still think they're going to be good. They're the Green Bay Packers for a reason. They got a really good head coach. And so, I think they'll be fine. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But I think this team can be good. And it can surprise them. I think it could surprise some teams. But, again, new era for the Green Bay Packers. So, we'll see what happens with them. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions now. Offensive stats from 2022. We look back on their offense. This was a good offense. 4th in yards per game, 7th in passing yards per game, 11th in rushing yards per game, and 5th for points per game. This surprised me. After coming off a very bad 2021 season, all of a sudden be this good offensively it shocked me. Jameson Williams wasn't playing that. He barely played last year. So all of a sudden, for this offense to be this good, shocked me. And Jared Goff shocked me. He's a good quarterback. I think he's still an average quarterback. This isn't a guy who's going to elevate the team to be a deep playoff contender, a Super Bowl contender. I can't see that happening with the Detroit Lions. But again, Jared Goff should be the guy for now. I was hoping. They did draft Hendon Hooker. Let's talk about Jared Goff. He got 4,000 yards last year, 29 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Again, a heck of a season. But there's a reason why they drafted Hendon Hooker. I think they realized that Jared Goff won't be that good to, again, take him to the Super Bowl, take him, a deep playoff contender. Again, good quarterback, can take him to the playoffs, but he's not going to do too much. He's not going to elevate that team to a championship contender, and maybe Hendon Hooker can do that. We'll see. He probably won't play this year. He'll be 26 most likely when he starts, possibly his first game coming not this year, but in 2024. But I'm excited for Hendon Hooker. I watched him play at Virginia Tech. I'm a Virginia Tech fan, so I know I like Hendon Hooker. I love Hendon Hooker. I low-key wish they would have traded up maybe for one of these quarterbacks, and maybe that's what they were doing until they were gone quickly. In my opinion, if I was them, I would have taken Will Levis. Not with that 6th pick, but I think with maybe one of the picks, I would have taken Will Levis. But nitpicking there, but I'm excited for Jared Goff in this offense. You look at the running backs, you bring in David Montgomery, who's a better Jamal Williams, but kind of replaces that guy who's going to be running most of the ball. He's going to be taking most of the carries. You drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, which, again, I think it was a really high pick for Jahmyr Gibbs, and it somewhat reminds me to some extent of the Travis Etienne situation. They say that they're going to use him as a wide receiver, or they're going to use him in the slot more than maybe running the ball. The Jaguars said the same exact thing. They were going to utilize him as a slot receiver. And he can, and Jahmyr Gibbs can, but ultimately Travis Etienne turned out to be a running back. Mainly a running back. So that could happen with Jahmyr Gibbs, and you just paid David Montgomery all this money. Again, I think David Montgomery is a great running back. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a great running back. Just a little early for me for Jahmyr Gibbs. But again, good receiving back. Give him the ball in space. He can definitely make some people miss and take it to the house if he really wanted to. So, again, excited for this running back group. A little too early for me for Jahmyr Gibbs. But again, I am excited about David Montgomery. And so, let's talk about this receiving core that is really, really intriguing. You obviously have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, he's a little overrated. But again, a good wide receiver one. We're not going to get into all of that, but I like Amon-Ra. He had a heck of a season last year. If I could pull up his stats here. I know he had over 1,000 yards. Yeah, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. A good receiver, good slot receiver in the NFL. But after Amon-Ra, I'm not too confident in this receiving core. I think it's fine. Especially, Jameson Williams is out for 6 weeks? 7 weeks or something like that. He's out for a little bit of a season, so that definitely sucks. Especially once he's coming off that ACL injury. Now he's going to miss more time. Again, still a big fan of Jameson Williams, but we need him on the field. You need him on the field. We need to see him on the field for me to feel comfortable, to be honest. Because if he keeps not getting on the field, that's a lot, because you did trade up for him. Now, to be honest, that was a fleece on your part versus the Vikings with that trade. Definitely had a heck, but pretty solid. So again, we'll see. You have Marvin Jones, who you brought in, who's not a bad wide receiver at all. Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. I don't think any of them are wide receiver 2. That Marvin Jones is definitely a good wide receiver 3. Josh Reynolds is nice. Khalif Raymond, good receivers. Tight ends. They drafted Sam Laporta, who I'm excited for in Detroit. I think he is a Detroit guy. He is a Dan Campbell guy, and I'm excited to see him because again, he's amazing after the catch. He's like a bowling ball. He's a bowling ball out there, and I think he'll be definitely a great addition to this tight ends, where I think it's a good tight end group. I like Brock Wright. I like James Mitchell. I know some fans of Lions before the draft were like, they're not going to draft a tight end in the first round. They don't need a tight end. No, they didn't draft a tight end in the first round, but I think they definitely needed a tight end, and I think Sam Laporta is going to be absolutely amazing. He'll have a great rookie season. But this receiving core, early on in the year, I don't know how confident I am in this receiving core when it comes to receivers and tight ends. Again, Amon-Ra is going to get his. I think Sam Laporta is going to get his. But missing out on Jameson Williams for another 6 weeks, I think, is absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating. And could definitely stunt their growth on offense maybe early on in the season. Because we know what Jameson Williams can do. He complements Amon-Ra amazing. He's a deep threat. He can go down. He's a big target as well. And he can outrun you. He's a good route runner. So he fits what they want to do. But again, out for 6 weeks. Just get him back on the field. Just get him back on the field. So let's talk about this offensive line. One of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And this is what makes this offense go. This is what makes this offense go, is their offensive line. We talk about Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Vaitai. Don't know how to say his first name, so I'm not going to try it. And you got Penei Sewell. One of the best offensive lines in the league. It might be two. It might be the second best offensive line in the league behind the Eagles. But again, like I said, this is what makes this offenses go. You know, you have Jared Goff. You're giving Jared Goff time in the process, make plays, which is huge. And the running game benefits from this too. David Montgomery should be able to find a lot of holes. Jahmyr Gibbs, if he can find a hole, I mean, he's a smaller back, so he's going to be able to fit into some smaller gaps. And it could be lethal. This offensive line is obviously, again, like I keep saying, best offensive line, second best offensive line in the league. But overall, I think this just helps out the whole team. And when you have an offensive line this good, this is what allows you to have maybe an average quarterback play as well as he did last year. And so that's obviously the biggest thing that's helped this team, especially this offense, a lot. And also you got Penei Sewell, who can play receiver for you at times. You know, if you need to close to the game, call on Penei Sewell. He'll be great. So let's go ahead and talk about this defense now for the Detroit Lions. Last year, 32nd in yards per game, 30th in allowed passing yards per game, 29th in allowed rushing yards, and 30th in allowed points. It was not good. And they made some massive upgrades this past season to really help out this defense. I don't know if it's going to boost them into like a top 10 defense, maybe even top 15 defense, but this defense should be better. And if the offense is similar to what it was last year, or even if it just took a little decline, this is a team that can make the playoffs. This team that could win the division. And we'll get to that at the end of the video, but you look at the secondary. They made so many good moves on the secondary. Signing Cam Sutton, signing Manley Mosley, signing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, drafting Brian Branch, and you got the other guys. You know, don't take for granted or don't take too much. When you look at the positions, these guys can move everywhere. You know, don't put too much weight into where I put them at cornerback, safeties. Cam Sutton's a cornerback, Emmanuel Mosley's a cornerback, but Brian Branch can play slot, nickel, same thing with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They both can play safety. Shazy Walker, Kirby Joseph, they're safeties. And I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited for the versatility of this secondary. And obviously, they made some great moves. These guys fit the Detroit culture, and this defense should be a lot better than last year, especially in the secondary. And I'm excited. I mean, they signed, Cam Sutton to 4 years possibly. Emmanuel Mosley, I think, was an absolutely amazing signing. And honestly might be one of their most underrated signings this past offseason. You get C.J. Gardner-Johnson for a year. Drafted Brian Branch, which I cannot stress how much that was a steal. I had him as a top 5 prospect in this year's draft. I thought he was going first round. He fell to the 10th pick in the second round or something like that. Steal. I'll say that. That was an absolute steal. So again, I'm excited for what the secondary looks like. And then you go to the defensive line, the front seven. They made some moves. You got Alex Anzalone. You re-signed him. You drafted Jack Campbell. A little too early. I'm not going to nitpick it, but he's a good linebacker. But a little too early for me. You obviously got Malcolm Rodriguez, who definitely showed out. You got Julian Okwara and James Houston, who are going to be more of the outside linebackers coming off the edge. And then you look at the defensive line. You got Aiden Hutchinson. You know, if it wasn't for Sauce, probably would have won Rookie of the Year. He had 9.5 sacks last year. So again, I'm excited for Aiden Hutchinson. Big things for him, and I can't believe he went second overall. Be honest, and I like the interior is fine. I'm a big Aleem McNeil fan, so I think he'll be a good piece of interior. John Kaminsky is fine. Josh Pascal mainly coming off on the outside. The edge rushers are good. I'm kind of scared of their run defense. I think that's the biggest thing, at least when it comes into the interior defensive line. I'm scared of their run defense. And hopefully Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Malcolm Rodriguez kind of, minimize what could happen to the middle of that interior defensive line. So, again, we'll see what happens. They made some ton of moves. And, again, Jack Campbell. Dude's an absolute freight train. Is that for his size, he's really athletic. It's super interesting of how athletic he is, and I think he can be a really good linebacker. When you talk about him, I thought he was going to go in the second round and be an absolute beast, but a little too early for me. I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not going to nitpick it, but he was my linebacker 3 in this draft class. So, again, we'll see what happens. But good linebackers. I like their linebacker group. I love their middle linebacker, outside linebacker group. Defensive line, I like the edge rushers. I'm just a little scared about their interior defensive line. So, again, we'll see what happens with the Detroit Lions, and maybe they can go ahead and possibly win the division. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. So let's take a look past last year at their offensive stats, team stats for 2022. They were 7th in yards per game, 6th in passing yards per game, 27th in rushing yards per game, and 8th in points per game. They had a good offense. I mean, obviously they won the division for the reason, for obviously a reason. So again, I'm excited for this offense. Again, you lose Dalvin Cook, which I think initially will be a big problem, but I think down the line of the year, I think, we'll finally get it right. And I'm a big fan of one of the running backs on their team that I think that can kind of shock people and come out as a surprise. But obviously, I think they got better when it comes to the passing game. You got a good offensive line. You got Kirk Cousins, who it really depends. He could take a jump. He could decline. It's really, or he could just be there. He's one of those guys where it's like he can help a team, but he's just average. He's not going to elevate a team to a Super Bowl, in my opinion. But we'll see. And obviously, you have Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the league. And then you also have Jordan Addison, who you drafted, who I think is an upgrade from Adam Thielen. And I don't think that's crazy to say. I like KJ Osborne. You're going to get TJ Hawkinson for a full season now. So I think this passing game definitely got better. We'll see what the rushing game and the run game looks like this year. So let's see. Now let's talk about this depth chart. Obviously, you got Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins didn't have a bad year last year. He obviously made some bad decisions. To end the playoff game, he threw it short of the sticks. That didn't make sense to me. You look at Kirk Cousins' stats last year. He had 4,500 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. So he had a good season. Maybe want to lower it down on those interceptions, but again, Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that can get you to the playoffs, but I don't think he can get you to a Super Bowl. And that's why I think they should have drafted Will Levis. I think Will Levis could sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year or two, develop, learn, the other guys on the team, and let him start when Kirk Cousins' contract is up or, retires, or you just let him go. Now you talk about the running backs. No more Dalvin Cook. You got Alexander Madison as the starting running back. But the guy I'm really excited about is Dwayne McBride, the rookie. I don't know why it's a different color. I meant to put it as the light blue, but a big fan of Dwayne McBride. I'm surprised he fell to, I think, the 7th round. He is a powerful back. I think he is a smaller back, if I'm not mistaken. But again, he's powerful. He absolutely did insane things in the Conference USA last year. It was insane. Let me look him up really quick. Let me see if I can find his stats. He dominated Conference USA last year. He went for 1,700 yards on the ground, 19 touchdowns, and he averaged 7.4 yards per carry. I don't care that it was the Conference USA. That's impressive. And the fact that he went in the 7th round absolutely blows my mind. I like Alexander Madison. Ty Chandler's nice, but I think Dwayne McBride honestly could find himself as the starting running back by the end of the year. And I think he'll be an absolute beast. Or maybe it's not. Maybe he doesn't start, and it's a running back by committee with Alexander Madison and also Dwayne McBride, and that could happen. I'm a big fan of Alexander Madison. I think he'll be great as a starter going on, but I think as soon as Dwayne McBride gets integrated into this offense, their rushing game can skyrocket, in my opinion. I don't think Dwayne McBride will be a top 10 running back, but he'll be a damn good running back. A good running back. So let's take a look at this receiving core. You look at the top guys. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, a great wide receiver trio. And then you get TJ Hawkinson, again, in my opinion, a top 10 tight end, maybe a top 5 tight end. I would have to, look at everything and all that, but he's a great tight end. You got Josh Oliver, maybe a little bit of an overpay, but again, I'm not going to nitpick that. He's a fine blocking tight end. So again, this receiving core should definitely help out Kirk Cousins. This should help out the running game. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's still going to get his double teams, but now you also got to look for somebody like Jordan Addison, who should be a lot more explosive than Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's like 32 years old, Jordan Addison's like 21, 22. Again, and I think he's arguably already a better receiver. And then you have obviously KJ Osborne, who is also a really good wide receiver that could kill you. You're looking at Jordan Addison, you're double teaming Justin Jefferson. Boom, KJ Osborne's, just caught a 75-yard touchdown. He's a great wide receiver, and obviously you got to worry about TJ Hawkinson. Let's take a look at their offensive line. This is a good offensive line, in my opinion. You got Christian Darrisaw, one of the best left tackles in the league. You got Ezra Cleveland, who's a serviceable left guard. Garrett Bradbury, who is one of the best centers in the league. And then you got Ed Ingram, who is going into his second year. And you also got Brian O'Neill. So this left side in the center, I love Christian Darrisaw. Ed Ingram and Brian O'Neill. Brian O'Neill's a nice right tackle. We'll see what happens with Ed Ingram. Don't know too much about him personally. But, if they like him. Again, this is projected all off our lads, so Ed Ingram might not start. We'll see. Maybe they bring in somebody else. But, again, I think Christian Darrisaw on this left side is going to be the main point, going to be really good on the blind side. I know Christian Darrisaw had a concussion during the season, so if he's coming back fully healthy, he will be an absolute monster on that left side. And again, like I said with the lines, this is what happens. The offensive line is what makes teams go, especially in offense. They give him time, Kirk Cousins can make the plays. He can absolutely go out there and throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, give time, you give him more time for Justin Jefferson to get open. Jordan Addison to get open. And so I'm excited for that. And if this offensive line can help out the running game and provide holes and provide space for running backs, this running back, offense may be better than last year with no Dalvin Cook. So we'll see. But again, Kirk Cousins is an average quarterback, but he can get the Vikings to the playoffs. We'll see what happens with their rushing game. I love Dwayne McBride. The receivers, amazing. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, absolutely amazing. And the offensive line is, the main part of this offense that I absolutely love in. So let's go ahead and talk about this defense now. You look at last year's 2022 defensive team stats. They're 31st in allowed yards per game, 31st in allowed passing yards per game, 20th in allowed rushing yards, and 28th in allowed points. This defense was terrible last year, but I expect this defense to make a jump. You bring in defensive coordinator Brian Flores, who was absolutely amazing as the defensive guy in Miami. He did good with the Steelers. I'm surprised what was he, like a linebacker coach or something in Pittsburgh? 1 year now he's already a defensive coordinator and he could find himself as a head coach next year. So this defense should definitely already be upgraded and should be better just based off a better coach. So I'm excited for that. You look at the secondary, which can be good. It can be really good. And, it's a big boomer bust. I love Byron Murphy. Stats-wise, he may not look that good, but he's a good coverage guy. And I think this signing was absolutely huge for Minnesota. Caleb Evans is somebody who's definitely risen up into with the starting lineup. And Mekhi Blackman, who they just drafted out of USC, can definitely be pretty solid. And Andrew Booth Jr., who they drafted, I believe, in the first round, maybe the second round, I believe, in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. The thing about this defense is that they're betting a lot on the development of the young players. Andrew Booth is one of that guys. You look at the safeties, Lewis Cine, however you say his last name, is one of those guys. You got Harrison Smith at the safety position, who I'm definitely excited for. Obviously, I'm saying like he's 25 years old. He's like 32. But he is a veteran player that this defense needs. He's not as athletic as he used to be. He's not as speedy as he used to be. But his IQ and knowledge is off the charts. And that's why he's still one of the best safeties in the league. And then you have Cam Bynum, who's pretty young, who should definitely complement Harrison Smith well. Again, we'll see what happens with Lewis Cine, however you say his name, because that's another guy where they're hoping for the development. Same thing with Andrew Booth Jr. So this secondary, I think, has improved from last year. But again, you're still hoping for the development of these younger players, and that's the same thing here with this front seven. You have Danielle Hunter coming off the edge, outside linebacker for the linebackers, who may or may not be on the team next year. I know they're still working out some contract details. He might get traded. He might not. We'll see. But if he does play, he's really going to be helpful for this Vikings defense. They lost Zadarius Smith. They lost Eric Kendricks. But honestly, I'm not worried about the Eric Kendricks loss. I'm not that worried about the Zadarius Smith loss. You bring in Brian Asamoah, who they drafted in 2022, who I'm a big fan of Brian Asamoah. I think he can go out there and replace Eric Hicks. And it's not going to be just him. You have Jordan Hicks, who I think, or not Eric Hicks, Eric Kendricks. You have Jordan Hicks, who I think, again, will absolutely help out Brian Asamoah. But I think that Brian Asamoah will be the main guy in the middle of the defense. And then you have Marcus Davenport, who is going to be coming off the edge, going to be in that outside linebacker, edge rusher type of role where I'm excited for. And the signing was good. It's a downgrade from Zadarius Smith. But I don't think it's that big of a downgrade. I don't think, he's not going to be that bad of a downgrade. He'll be a great guy coming off the edge, though, stats-wise it may not look good, but I like him. I do love Marcus Davenport. And then you look at the defensive line. You got Andrew Dean. Yeah. No, Dean Lowry, not Andrew Dean, Dean Lowry. So I'm excited for this defensive line. I think it will improve. I don't know. Maybe I'm not excited for it. But Dean Lowry's a nice pickup from the Packers. Harrison Phillips is fine. DJ Wonnum, I think, can be a great player. You drafted Jacqueline Roy, who can be pretty solid on that interior. But you're mainly hoping for these outside linebackers, these linebackers, to really help out on the edge and with the pass rush and the run defense. So we'll see. I think this is their weakest point on the defense. I do love the secondary. I do love the linebackers, but this defensive line is going to need some upgrades, either that be this offseason during the season. Maybe sign somebody like a good defensive lineman. I was going to say Yannick Ngakoue, but I mean, he could definitely help out. But defensive linemen, they can still make moves. We're still in the middle of the boring offseason, but the Vikings, I'm excited. I think they can genuinely be one of the best teams in the league. No, I'm not saying they're going to be as good as next year, because, I mean, you look at how many games they won in a one-score game or whatever like that, blah, blah, blah. I think they're underrated. Let's talk about the division standings. So first, I have the Vikings at 11-6. Let's talk about the division standings. First, I have the Vikings winning the division at 11-6. I have the Lions at 8-9. I have the Bears at 7-10, and the Packers at 7-10. I think the Vikings win it. Lions come second. I think they make the playoffs. The Bears and Packers both finish at 7-10 at the bottom of the division. Again, this is going to be a very competitive season for the NFC North. Anybody really, in theory, could win it, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers, Bears, Lions, or Vikings win it. But I think the Vikings are the best team in this division. I think they are a very underrated team, in my opinion. I think so many people saw the end of last year like, oh my gosh, they're such frauds because they won 13 or 11, 10 games with, as a one-score game. And I'm just like, they won them, though. That means they're good. I mean, you won a game. You won 13 games last year. Yeah, would you like the blowout teams or even just win by 10 points to some? Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, the better team comes out on top. So if they're able to do that 13 weeks, they're a good team. And I think they get better on defense. I mean, the whole Brian Flores thing, like you said, the Lions, I'm just really worried about that offensive receiving core. If anything, that's my biggest worry to start off. And we'll see. I think the interior of that defensive line is definitely a flaw as well, a area of concern for the Detroit Lions. But again, I don't think they're going to be bad. I just have them 8-9, and I think the Vikings win the division. Then the Bears and Packers. This is where I think, most people would predict them to be. I don't think the Bears are a playoff team. I kind of think they're an overrated team, if that makes any sense. Like, I understand they made a bunch of moves, getting Tremaine Edmonds, getting DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, drafting him. But there's so many questions about this team is Justin Fields the guy? Is this offensive line actually good? The secondary depth, the depth of the secondary, that defensive line, that's horrendous. Too many questions for me to go out and say that they're going to win the division and make the playoffs. Or just make the playoffs in general. And then the Packers, same thing. Obviously just the unknown, the unproven of Jordan Love. And I'm a little worried again about their defensive wise. So that's kind of how I feel about everything in this division. So if you want to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what's your thoughts on every single team in this division, and turn on notifications if you're waiting for your team, your division. Next will be the AFC North. So go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.